Well, welcome everyone on the other side of the first apocalypse that we just went through the last couple of years. Thank you for joining us for those of you online. So the format we're going to do today is Q&A, and I think Barb brought a pile of rocks, so I'll let her talk about that for a little while everybody's preparing their questions. So you want to introduce yourself, and for anybody who's not familiar with you, and then talk about what you brought.
Okay. Well, hi everyone out there in Facebook land and everyone here in the room. My name is Barb Morey and I'm an aura reader, and also I work with rocks and crystals. And so today I decided to bring some of my crystals. So the first one I brought was a geode that I thought was really interesting. It's the blue, and you actually can see through it, and the crystals are white, and it has a grounding energy. This particular geode has really a good grounding energy in it. So I actually used it today earlier to help somebody out. So that was really cool. And let's see, right here is a smoky quartz, but this smoky quartz, this one came from Arkansas, and it's really interesting because it has a termination here. A termination means points, so it has two point terminations here, and then it's got a third one. So this right here is like a sacred rock because it has it's like the number 3. 3 points. Well, actually, there's 2, 4, and 5, but the point of it is the points are over here, and then there's another section over here, which is this one right here has a lot of good energy, and it feels so wonderful just holding on to that. I can just feel it vibrate. But I was felt really lucky to find this one. It's just, you don't usually find them like that. And the white material here is called the matrix, and that's actually how they form. They have a matrix, and then they kind of grow from there with the different chemicals and water and minerals. So this one grew kind of interesting. So, and everyone was talking last month about Endora crystals. Well, this is the Endora crystal that I was given, and I call her Angel. And she kind of looks like an angel. She has a wing over here and a wing over here. And I actually see a face right here in this one. So she's looking at me. And this Endora crystal, it moves around my house. I mean, I have put it in one area, and then I find it somewhere else, and then I find it somewhere else. So, and that was one of my first experiences about crystals, moving around in the house. It was given to me because this Rick Talley decided that when he got the crystals, he would to give them to different people, and I was blessed to get one. So anyway, I just love her, Angel.
What power does she give you, Barb?
Huh?
What power do you think she gives her? What?
Oh.
You said the other one you held. So
Well, I was just asked the question on what power did she give me. I actually have a lot of peace, around with this particular, and I feel like she's spiritually watching over me, and when I'm feeling nervous or depressed, and I've been having to deal with a lot of anxiety. I've had to deal with closing an estate. I mean, I got stuck with it, but that's all right. It is what it is. So and my blood pressure went up once because I hired someone that, wasn't doing the job right. So I got this, okay, all right, calm down. I'm not dying for that house. So she has helped me a lot. This is it's a smoky quartz, and once again, this one has a lot of sides. It has a point over here, and then it's got little tiny points, all the way around here, and the whole thing has got a lot of points. it's all different points. And what this one does is just, it has such a good energy. It's a really good rock and crystal to work with. It's more like a healing stone. And with all the energies, because it's pulling in all this energy all over the universe. So it's it's one of my healing stones that I use occasionally when I work on people. But you can see how shiny it is. It just sparkles. And then kyanite. This is a massive kyanite, and kyanite's always blue. And you know, I have other pieces that are just like, you know, they're just straight, you know, pieces like that. I had one that was in a necklace, and it broke in half because it was too thin. But kyanite is another good grounding stone, and I really love this one. I actually got this at a rock show, probably in the Southwest when I was. I like to go to different rock shows and see what they have. And this one right here said, "Hey," and I said, "Okay." So that's all I have to do is say, "Hey," and I got it. Okay. This is a piece of fluorite. Now, fluorite, and I really like this because it has a line of lavender, purple all the way around it. It's almost like a crown, you know. It's like there's the top of the fluorite, and then there's a circle like a crown. And it has a few points on that too. And fluorite is another, it also looks like it's kind of a heart shape. So you can see kind of like, you know, if you kind of speculate, you know, that it kind of looks like a little bit of a heart shape. I mean, just use your imagination. But that's another good grounding and healing stone. And the lavender and the green, you know, especially light green fluorite, because it has a lot of good energy, and the lavender is always a good healing color. So, yeah, it's just like, oh. And let's see, who else did I buy? Okay, this is a Lemurian crystal, and the reason I brought it was because Lemurian crystals can be in different shapes. And what they always do is when you feel on it, you can always feel that there's like marks, and they're always going, you know, let's see, from side to side if you're holding it up, and you can actually feel the striations in the rock. And you know, a lot of them are clear, but they're all different colors. And this was kind of an interesting one. I really kind of like that, you know, and you could kind of see through parts of it. And it's just a good rock. Lemurian crystals, they have a lot of connection to spirit, and you know, and this one right here is, I could just see the energy going, you know, it's just, you know, it's got a lot of energy, and it's just, once again, it's one of the stones that I use for like healing people and connecting them with source. And anyway, it wanted to come today, and I said, okay. So I always ask my crystals and rocks who wants to show up. And then I've got a few more, and these are quartz crystals. This one right here, this is an Arkansas crystal, and this one right here is Lemurian, and you can feel the striations in it. So that's a regular Arkansas, and this is a Lemurian crystal. This has all these definition marks, and then later on, you know, when we're done, I'll let the people in the audience take a look at some of these crystals so they can actually feel it. And this is another one. Once again, it's got points and points. So it's like what they call is double terminated, but if you want to say, call it triple, because there's two here and one there. So it'd be another sacred number of crystal rocks. And I especially like the little gold colors in there too. And I just, once again, it's really happy. It is sparkling like crazy today. They don't always sparkle that much, but it is really sparkling. That's really happy to see everybody. Yay. And finally, I brought one of my crystal wands. This right here, I was using it earlier today, and I have never seen one of my, this was really amazing, because this crystal wand, when I was working on someone today, it just shot out so much beautiful lavender. I mean, it was just going out. And I usually work on people. I usually put the rock around. I actually can feel this. Feel
She was
the
working on
energy.
me. It was you can say she was working on me, but it was amazing, that crystal. I felt it so powerful.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So this one basically wanted to come because, well, I had no idea that I was going to be working on her today, but wow, this one had so much energy, and it still has the energy. It's like, whoa. I mean, I point it down right, for me, it's just showing white. On her, it was showing lavender, and just the energy was just amazing. So anyway, this is my rocks and crystals for today. Every month I've been trying to remember, if I think about it, to bring some different ones to show and do show and tell. It's like all my crystals, they enjoy being talked about, and all these crystals right here that I showed you today, they all are very happy, and they're all sending all their energy and love to everybody out there in Facebook land and to the people in the room. So.
Okay, so if anybody has questions, either in the room, we'll pass out the mic, and online, Michaela will read them.
I was wondering if the crystals get charged during the energy transfer or pick up on a lot of that energy from Ethann.
Oh, sure. Yeah, the energy. Yeah, Ethann is really powerful. So yeah, they're getting that. They're already feeling his energy. Yeah.
Okay, we have a lot of questions online, so if anyone in the room has one, just raise your hand. And I'm going to start with one for Ethann. There are some crystal questions, but there's one that came in for Ethann first. So Ethann, what's your view on open or polyamorous relationships? It seems like monogamy as we know it is not really working many times. Is it possible that certain souls are meant to have a romantic relationship with more than one person at a time?
Well, first I'll answer the last part of the question and then answer the rest. Yes, it's souls are here to have a variety of experiences, so no experience is invalid. If that's something that someone is drawn to do, then they're drawn to do it because it's something their souls chose to experience in this life. So there's nothing right or wrong with polyamorous relationships or monogamous relationships or any kind of relationships. So first, that point. So if that's something you're drawn to, that's perfectly all right. And whatever you need to experience in the process of going through that, you will experience. But as far as monogamous relationships not working, I think that's a misunderstanding that's taking place in our society today because of political and other manipulations of the mindset of people taking place these days. There's a very strong move these days to break up the human relationships and the family unit and so on. It's been going on for some time now, but it's certainly accelerated in the recent years, and that's going to continue for a little while. So what we're seeing in monogamous relationships not working is not really the reality of the situation, but more that people's minds and thoughts and ideas and psychology are being manipulated heavily these days to where those situations exist that way. Another thing to consider is relationships in general become dysfunctional when people are struggling with everyday basic needs. So if you look at the statistics, for example, of divorce rates in, let's take the United States as an example, as those statistics are very readily available, divorce rates started to increase dramatically from 1971. Prior to 1971, there was no major issue. It was certainly increasing, but at a very, very slow rate over time. And in 1971, the rate of increases in divorce increased dramatically. And the thing that happened in 1971 was the US went off the gold standard. And so for the first time since the US dollar, the government started to inflate the dollar, which means that people's purchasing power went down, and so people became more and more poor as of 1971. Now, as of 2008, the US dollar has been inflated dramatically, and the last 2 years even more so, and we're going to see that increasing again dramatically in the rest of this decade. So we will see a huge increase in divorce rates in the decades ahead. And as long as the economic structure remains this way. So as long as the US government and other world governments continue to inflate their currency. So let's take Turkey as an example, because they went into a state of hyperinflation this past year. And so their currency has lost dramatic amounts of value for people who are still using that currency anyway. And so we're going to see dramatic rates of divorce in Turkey, but not just divorce, but relationship dysfunction in general, and also drops in health and all kinds of other things. Societies tend to degenerate when currencies are debased. So there's that factor, but also there is a lot of political influence these days in terms of moving us away from a strong family unit and good social interaction and things like that. The last 2 years are an escalation of that has taken place on the planet. So there's nothing wrong with monogamous relationships. In fact, they are the best model for human evolution. But that doesn't mean that some human beings aren't here to experience a variety of experiences in polyamorous relationships at this time, and that's perfectly all right. But let's take a step back to the origins of relationship, or rather marriage, and male and female marriages as well. Historically, the reason for relationships of this nature go beyond just the romantic or companionship component. There is a certain alchemical reaction, you might say, that takes place between a male and female physiology and energy field that it creates a spiritual advancement in both individuals. So when you have a monogamous relationship between two individuals who are in a loving relationship, so I wouldn't say just, if you are with somebody who you hate and they hate you, it doesn't really help. But let's say you're in a monogamous relationship, preferably a male-female physiological relationship, because there is a certain difference in the two physiologies that also exists in the multidimensionality of those bodies that allows the two to work together to build each other, not only in terms of physical strength, but also in terms of spiritual ascension. So in ancient times, when these practices were upheld, the idea of marriages and sexual interaction, for example, were far beyond what we see today. In modern society, relationships and sexuality have been extremely physicalized to where it's just a physical thing. And of course, our media, our movies, our TV programming, all of that is furthering the physicalization of relationships and sexuality when it's not that at all in its origins. It's actually intended for us to work together in a spiritual union with a partner to increase our own spiritual capacity and ascension process, our own spiritual development through the combination of sexual energy in certain alchemical ways. The process is too complex for me to explain in this conversation, but just understand that is the origins. So we ultimately need to get back to a monogamous relationship structure in our society if we are going to advance as a society. And the reason they're not working, as you have stated in the question right now, is not really because they can't work and because they are not working, but because there's a lot of interference these days, not only financial, but also vibrational, electromagnetic, nutritional, psychological programming, and so on. A lot of propaganda, and even in TV programming and movies that are causing human beings to become misaligned and confused in terms of their understanding and belief systems when it comes to these ideas. If all of that programming was not there, we would naturally fall into a monogamous relationship style in society, and we would form stronger bonds and have better relationships with our families, our children's, with each other, and we would have more peace on the planet. But such a world does not serve the people who control the world. And for them, it's better for them if we don't have these relationships, because they can control people better if the family unit is weak. If the family unit is strong and relationships are strong, then we will go to each other for support and advice and guidance. But when the family unit is destroyed, we go to our governments and our authority figures and our media for guidance, and we will listen to what they say. And the last 2 years are a perfect example of that. If the family unit was strong, nothing would have come of the last 2 years. We would have relied on each other, and society would have remained as it was, and we wouldn't have followed our world leaders. But when you break apart the family and the relationship unit, then people start to listen to their governments and their authorities. So this is what you're seeing in society today, and this is why you believe that monogamous relationships are not working. It's not because they're not and they can't. It's because they're being forcibly manipulated and destroyed in our society through all these different mechanisms in order to allow the few to control the many for their own benefit and to the adverse reality on the planet at this time.
So that's a question for Barb. Can you please describe what auras are? Are they different from viewing the magnetics of a person or a thing? I only see orange and blue colors, which are magnetics of a body, and I'm still learning the importance of it. I have seen something similar when viewing polarity in energy. Or have you seen something similar? Have you seen something similar when viewing the polarity of energy?
Well, there are different layers of the aura. You know, most of the time what I, focus on is the layer that's closest to the body, and it has different aura colors. There can be green, which is, more like, love of nature, love of animals, and healers, like a lot of doctors, nurses, and that. Social workers, people that like to work with people are greens. Blues are, more analytical. Show me and prove it to me. And yellows are the youngest and the oldest of the aura colors, and they were been around the block, or they're the first time. It's kind of like a little bit more innocent, but open to receiving and giving and welcoming and communication with people, and just have a little bit more, not so cynical. And let's see, there's the reds, which is love for others. It's usually like a rosy color, it's just the reddish. I usually don't see too many that have that. Usually when I see the red on somebody, they usually have a lot of white, spiritual, it's kind of mixed. The spiritual is along with the red, because they have a love for so many other people, and they're just kind of giving it out. There's the lavender, which is people with a lavender color. They tend to be able to, what they do is they're naive, And they're always searching for their niche. But once they find their niche, they absolutely excel in it. And then there's like the tans, and they tend to be more like like lawyers and politicians, and that they have that. And then I had recently somebody was asking me about black. Now, I I had seen, well, black is a positive color, and I find that people that are really strong in their convictions, like Martin Luther King. He had a black around him, but it was such a rich, strong. He had this really strong goal to make peace on the earth. And so, but it was also mixed with white because he had that pure spirituality along with that. So it's usually a combination of colors. And then after that, the layers go out into your feelings and emotions. So you'll see whatever you're feeling will be in the next realm of colors. So if you're feeling sad, sometimes you'll have a blue color that would be on the next, and sometimes you're excited, so you'll see an orange, and you're feeling love, so you'll just send a lot of a pink and just different. So it's like I said, it's just in different layers. Now, have I seen the energy of the blue and orange like that? Not too often, but it's like kind of like in circles, where they'll just kind of flow, and it's kind of like a figure eight of some of these, of that energy that you're talking about. I don't see it too often, but I have seen it. And then there's the spiritual aura like Ethan has, who was womp, Now, Gandhi, mind you, his aura went through miles. But Ethan, when I first met him, I mean, he was like, it was huge. And that's what started everything in the first place. And I had never seen someone with the presence of an aura was so expansive that just kind of filled up the area, and people were so happy, and I didn't really believe it was just the food. It was a vegetarian. They had a vegetarian potluck, which was very interesting. But aside from that, people were really happy. Now, mind you, when you're eating plants and vegetarian food, I think that probably helps your body. Not that I'm not saying that meat isn't okay, because I eat, some of each. I'm not a vegetarian or a vegan. I have been vegetarian for quite a few years. There's nothing wrong with however you choose to put stuff in your body. But with Ethan, his aura was so large that it just kind of filled up the back room. And I'm visiting with these people, and all of a sudden I look in the back, and I'm just seeing this really strong, long, huge aura. So this is where I got myself in trouble. I says, God, I've never seen someone with such a large aura. And that started everything. But it was a good thing. But, and different people perceive, auras in different ways. In Korea, the aura photography, when they take a picture of you, what happens is you see all the different colors. It's your heat energy, your emotional energy, your thought process. It all is connected in showing in your aura. So when I look at people's aura pictures, I can see some of different things that they're going through at the time. So.
Hey, so Barb, that's a question. I'm glad you brought that up. Can you do what you see in an aura? Does that typically match the Kirlian photography?
Well, not always. I don't try to dwell on too deep. Unless I'm actually giving somebody a reading. What happened is, I always called it glowing until I actually learned about what an aura was. And I had this lady called Barbara Bowers. She came up from California, and I went to her class. And I was like this turtle looking at the back because, oh, the aura. And finally I relaxed. And she says, "You're a yellow with an red overlay." And he says, "You see them too. Get up here." And she made me come to the front of the class and tell her what colors I was seeing with everyone. And then she proceeded to explain it to me. So what happened was I got uncomfortable because being a sign language interpreter before, if I was telling him what she was saying, Michaela, and vice versa, because they couldn't communicate, that's their conversation. So when I look too deep on people, then I'm seeing more than maybe it would be right to see. So I learned to kind of dial it down so that I'm not seeing so much, because I don't want people being, "Oh, I wonder what she's seeing about me now," because that makes people uncomfortable, and makes me uncomfortable too, because, I'm without permission, coming from a sign language interpreter, without permission, I don't want to see too deep unless you actually have a session with me, and then I will tell you exactly what I see. And I won't go too deep in a mixed group either, because once again, that's your private, your private thing, and I just have this morality thing where I just, that's who I am, and I can't change who I am. So, yeah. So, as far as Carillion photography, no, because you might be upset with somebody, and of course, it takes the picture of what you're thinking at that particular moment, at that particular time. I think it's a good thing for you to actually see, oh, look at all the different colors that I have around me. I think that it's okay, but it's not necessarily who you are. It's just what you're going through at that particular time.
I'm going to keep rolling with the aura questions since we're on a roll. There are a couple for Ethann. So, Barb, can you explain the significance and metaphysical properties of dragonstone and how to use it?
Dragon stones? Well, you know what? I do have, well, they actually created the dragon stone for me. But, I don't really see much, well, I haven't really worked with it. But I think it has to do with the collective, of the the Dragon Collective, which Michaela, she channels all kinds of things. I think, well, what I have experienced with the one dragon stone that I have, it feels like it has a lot of heat and energy. It's like a really strong energy stone, and it kind of vibrates when I have it in my hand. And I think that the particular stone that I have, I'm just talking about my personal experience. When I put that on people who have really low energy, and actually I use it myself because sometimes I've had low energy, it feels like it gives them like a big boost, to, help them, pick themselves up, especially, oh gosh, hold this, oh, yay. But as a whole, I haven't worked with it enough to be able to address that any farther than that.
Okay, so Ethann, someone's asking online if the light worker program still exists.
Mine? Sort of. I kind of decided not to do it anymore, although I suppose if the circumstances were right, I wouldn't say no, but I decided over the last couple of years to sort of move in a different direction, and that's primarily my focus now is that. But I wouldn't say I wouldn't do it. If the right person came along and it made sense at that time, I might. But at the moment, I'm not actively pursuing that, although my website still has it up there as something that I do. And I may leave it there for a little while longer. But most likely it's going to be phased out over the next few years.
Okay, so Barb, this is a question from Amy. She says, I had a close death call last month, ending up in the ER with 24 hours to live, suffering since December. Long story, but since I've been ill, my daughter, who can read auras, reads mine as weak, murky, grayish, gross, and green. How may I shift this, or can I? Are there crystal suggestions? Since I'm still, it says I'm still undiagnosed, though much improved and home. Thank you. I'm 54 and typically healthy with a brilliant, bright green aura.
Yeah. Well, in order to cleanse an aura, there's a video out, for me, you could go look it up on YouTube, and it teaches you how to create an energy circle using rocks and crystals. And it shows how to put you in there and seal you up and take the energy of the crystals. Now, and it doesn't necessarily have to be just rocks and crystals, because I had a discussion with people that said, well, I don't have that many. So it said you can use shells, you can use feathers, anything from nature would work, but it's still the same process of, creating the circle, you grounding it, and, using the crystal to seal you in it. That would be one thing that, of course, I am not a doctor. Okay, I'll tell you that right now. I'm not a doctor, and there's a lot of other ways you could do, to take care of it. Or you can do like juices and cleanses, and you could see a doctor and find out what your nutritional things are. But for purposes, for my particular knowledge, I would probably sit in an energy circle, create one, and just leave it in your house and just walk in and out of it and sit in there as often as you can, because, the crystals are amazing. But you should really, seek some other alternatives also. And, because like I said, I'm not a doctor.
Okay, this one is for Barb also. I have some lovely crystal from the azeztulite mine. The points have been damaged. Can they ever heal in some way? I'm willing to bury them for years. What is your opinion, please?
Well, even if the points are damaged, you have to understand rocks and crystals, they don't care if they're broken or damaged or not. They don't care, because they still have the same energy. And just like when you have the Carillion photography and you cut the leaf, and then you still take a picture of it, and it still has the energy of the whole leaf. The crystal, even if it's broken, because I have some that are like that, they still have the energy of the whole complete crystal. So the points and that, and even though you see it as damaged, the crystal sees itself as whole, and so you can utilize that no matter what. But I would put it out in the full moon. If you have a place you can put it outside, or rinse it in a creek. So it just like a recharging of it, or wash it in. Spring water would probably be okay, to use it. But don't worry about rocks. They always tell me, it doesn't matter what I look like. It's the energy that they give you, I receive it from you, and I give it back. So, don't worry about it being damaged. It's fine. They don't consider themselves damaged. They feel that I'm recreated.
Okay, this question is for Ethan. Can you tell us more about twin flames and soulmates?
I think Michaela channeled on this numerous times, so it's probably more thorough to listen back to one of those messages. But there's so many directions to go with that. I don't know exactly specifically what you want to know, but I know everybody out there is trying to meet their soulmate, and I recommend highly against it. But not in most cases, because I say that sort of tongue in cheek, just because a lot of people are seeking their soulmates, searching for the perfect, euphoric, utopia, and soulmates are here to teach you things. So they will, a lot of soulmate relationships are difficult because there's often unresolved traumas and karmic experiences from past lives. So not all soulmate relationships are this euphoric utopia that everybody thinks it is and is seeking out. A lot of times, because if you have a soulmate relationship, you've been together for many lifetimes and you've experienced different things and different traumas. I mean, just speaking about Michaela and I, we've died numerous times together in many lifetimes in traumatic circumstances. So,
Correction. He killed me in many lifetimes.
well, that's also the case. Not on purpose, but it did occur in some instances. And but we also, when we first met, we started channeling about why are we together, and one of what came through was that we have been together many lifetimes in a time on the planet when there was great turbulence and changes, and we were here in those incarnations to assist in the transition to a better world. And we died every time trying. So in many lifetimes we did that, and we stood out too much, and whoever was in control, we didn't survive because they made sure we didn't. So we, and we of course naturally asked, well, what about this time? And he said, no, this time you're going to make it. So, but here we are again. And those are the kind of things that soulmate relationships uncover. Is you've had these experiences before. So, so we were together, and Michaela was channeling about this change in timelines and all these things that are coming, and it's a difficult time on the planet. Well, that was before 2 years ago that we were talking about these things, and then, we thought, oh, okay, that was happening a few years ago. And then all of a sudden, the last 2 years happened, and we realized, oh no, it's starting to happen. So here we are again. So, so soulmate relationships will uncover those kind of things. And in reference to her saying, I got her killed, so, there was a particular lifetime, which we've never talked about publicly, but since she brought it up, I was her father. She was my little daughter in that lifetime, and we channeled this early on. And I built her this swimming pool or something, or pond, or swimming hole, whatever. And, in my infinite wisdom, I made this amazing thing for her so she could enjoy swimming because she likes swimming. And not thinking, I don't know, it's like a drain pipe or fill pipe or something I put in there. And she jumped in and banged her head on it and died. And so these kind of things will occur when you're moving into past life experiences. And so keep in mind that soulmate relationships will come with past life experiences, sometimes positive, some things that you've resolved and are of no consequence. If you're very advanced souls who are soulmates, then it's not a big deal because you've generally worked out those things, or at least the density around those experiences. You may or may not remember them consciously. But most human beings in soulmate relationships have not advanced that level. And so when they meet, the soulmate relationships can be very turbulent and traumatic, and you can often repeat the same kind of patterns you've had in the past in the current relationship in order to work it out again, or at least an opportunity to resolve those issues again. So a lot of soulmates can trigger each other in their journey. And I mean, Barb, I'm sure your ex-husband was a soulmate.
Yeah.
and that was not a very pleasant experience right to the very end. And still kind of going on even though he's not here anymore.
Right.
But and so we choose those soulmate relationships because we want to grow and evolve and to experience certain things. And before we come here, we do this all in, love of one another as soulmates, to come to this planet and to put each other through these things so that we can evolve and so that we can grow and become closer as soulmates. But then we come to Earth and we forget, and we just create all kinds of chaos and suffering for each other, and because we forget that we love each other, and that's why we chose to be this way, and to work out those things. Because if we knew why we were here, then we wouldn't do those things, and we would not evolve. So soulmate relationships are here to help you to grow and to evolve, and you will often repeat the same kinds of things you've done in the past in some new way. And as you evolve and eventually reach a state of consciousness together through many lifetimes, each subsequent soulmate interaction will be easier and better and more euphoric, like people think they are. But all these, I see so many courses and teachers teaching about how to find your soulmate, and nothing wrong with that. But the thing is, you don't need to find your soulmate. If you're supposed to find them in this life, they'll find you. You'll find each other. There's no way to force that to come about if it's not meant to be in this life. Some souls come here to their closest soulmates, maybe their family members or a friend, but not romantic interaction. Or in some cases, like in my case, Michaela, and although I've never explored my past lives with Barb, I'm sure I've had some with her too. But in that lifetime where I was her father, and in this life, your closest soulmate, who might have been a romantic partner in another life, may be your child. You don't really know that consciously all times. So twin flame is a little bit different, because the idea behind twin flames is that a soul is split and experiences life as two components that sort of are part of the one. And that can be a little bit more of an intense connection between two souls that can exist. And while you can certainly have past life traumas and such with those kinds of interactions, I don't think that's the case in most cases with a twin flame kind of interaction. But you can still have the same kinds of past life experiences or interactions that can repeat with twin flame relationships as well. So it's just with twin flames, it's a slightly closer spiritual bond that you experience versus a soulmate relationship. But otherwise, human experiences or whatever kind of physical or non-physical experiences these two components of the soul have experienced can be equal to a soulmate type of interaction.
I'm part of I wanted to talk about numerology, and I'm part of a group of 9 ladies that get together, and we try and heal loved ones when we're together. But sometimes we can't all be together, and we debate whether we should wait till all 9 can get together, or is it just as powerful with 7 or 8 or sometimes 5?
Well, numerology has its applications, and not that it isn't valuable in every instance, but I don't think we have to be that literal about it when it comes to those kinds of situations. So if you have 2 people who want to get together and heal, that could be just as good. With healing, it's a little bit different. It's not so much 9 people or whatever number of people, as much as the potency of those people and also the way their energies blend. So to the earlier question about relationships and monogamy, if you have a couple who is in a loving relationship, who have a divine, spiritual, sexual union, that energy can be more powerful than 30 people healing. So it's not really that important in terms of numerology in that case. But, not that 9 isn't a magical number, certainly it is. But let's just assume that these 9 people have this amazing spiritual bond, and when they get together, the energy is really intense. Then in that case, adding a 10th person may not necessarily be better. But if the 10th person was that much powerful, and with the other 9 could create something even more intense, then the number's not that important in this case.
Well, I have so I guess I want to continue on this theme of relationships, maybe even with both of you. So Barb, With couples, you've done aura readings before. And can you talk a little bit about what you see in the energy field that gives you the indication that people are good together or might experience challenges?
Well, I have done some couple aura readings, and sometimes the auras blend together, and they produce another color in between them, and it's so beautiful. I mean, I just almost get teary eyed. Not that they don't have struggles, and not that they don't have challenges, but the color between them shows that they can step beyond their issues and see the worth in the other person and know that it's worth fighting for. Now, I never really paid much attention between, because I didn't do it when I was married to my ex-husband. If I had done that, I probably would have never married him in the first place. But yeah, I've seen couples where their auras clash, and so that I know that they're not going to make it, and it's sad, I say, well, I just tell them, you need to go to couples counseling. You need to put the other person before you. You need to act, treat them, special. And I said, and that goes for the other person. You have to do the same thing to the other person. And if you can't put your ego aside and work with each other, then you're not going to work out. I mean, after all, it even says in the Bible, if you love somebody, you put their needs first, above everything else, and if you have challenges, I always say, when I was in another relationship after my ex-husband, and I left him because he hit me. So, and he hit me for a stupid reason, but he hit me pretty hard, and I was driving, and he tried to grab the car and jump the car over a bridge, and it was not fun. But I'm not going to go into the what it was. It's not important. But I wasn't going to be a battered woman, So that's why I left him, In my defense, in his later years, the last 12 years, I did take him to doctors and grocery stores and whatever else he needed, and especially the last few years, because he wasn't really able to do much of anything, and I had married him, and I felt that was the right thing to do. My nephew asked me to, and I did it. And regardless of how much and how miserable he made me, I stepped aside. That's your issue. You want to be miserable, that's fine, but I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do. So anyway, getting sidetracked. As far as relationships go, one of my important things is never go to bed mad. And I mean, there were times when my next relationship, we didn't go to bed because we were upset with each other. I said, we're going to work this out. I'm not going to bed until we get this resolved, which we did. And I was with them until they passed. So, and I haven't been with anyone since. I tried to date, but it seemed like people were looking at what I had, not who I was. So I gave it up. I'm happy with everybody, but I really do think as far as relationships is, you really have to work. Relationships are not easy, to be perfectly blunt, they're not easy, but you have to be willing to share these experiences and work through problems. And if you don't want to do it, you think, I even dealt with infidelity, and I dealt with that and worked on, and resolved things and moved on. So, and never threw it back in their face until they asked me about it, just probably a year before they died. And they said, why didn't you throw this up in my face? I said, why would I? I love you. If you love somebody, you forgive and you move on, so I don't know. That's just my personal experiences and my personal feelings, so.
I want to add something to the last question. The I was answering your question from a practical standpoint earlier. So for majority of people today on the planet, that answer is true. But let's say in more ancient times, when healers worked in groups or in secret societies and such, numerology was really critical. But that's because in that situation, they were all brought up in the same lineage. So they had similar training, similar development. Maybe some of them would have been a little bit more talented or gifted than others, but if you had 9 people in a group of healers, they were all fairly equal in terms of their development because they were brought up in a lineage and taught the same things and trained to a certain level of capability, let's say. In that instance, numerology does matter. So if you have 9 people all equal in every possible respect and brought up in the same training and lineage so that they're all using the same techniques and approaches to healing, then numerology is very important because certain numerological structures, just like sacred geometry, it's like the flower of life, which we use in our symbology, numerology is just sacred geometry. So when you have 9 people forming a union in a sacred geometric pattern, the healing will be more profound and more beneficial. But in practical application in the world today, we don't have that, except there are some secret societies on the planet that do maintain that integrity of that training. And in the future, there will be again. But at the moment, we're all very fractured and we don't have that. So in that instance, you're going to have 9 people who are completely different from each other in every sense and all have different training. And in that case, we can't make the same argument that numerology is going to be as applicable in that case. So that's what I would say. So if at some point you want to start some sort of mystery school and bring people up from children to that level, then I think numerology should be observed. Mm-hmm.
There's a question for Barb. Elaine, she says, I had a crystal, which wasn't mine, and she doesn't remember the name of it. But I was supposed to sleep with it, and it broke while it was in bed with me. There was a big pop, and I thought I felt it on the floor, but it was still in bed with me. Just the broken piece was on the floor. Is there any reason that a crystal would break? And does this have something to do with my energy?
Oh, yeah. All right. I'm going to share a story. This was when I was in my early 20s, okay? Maybe later 20s. But I was in my 20s. And I think that I actually have a picture of me working on my dad. It's pretty cool. But I had this beautician, and she had throat cancer. And she told me, she says, and of course I always like to say people are always talking to me. So she said, Barb, she says, the doctor told me I can't work. He says, but I have to work. I need the money. I said, well, I'll work on you 2 or 3 times a week. I didn't really charge her, back then. It was just trying to help her out. So when she got done with her crystal work, when she got done with her chemo, I was putting all my crystals around her, and I took this big, beautiful amethyst cluster, and I put it on her neck. And I was holding points on her head after I did all the energy work. And I watched this crystal get darker and darker and darker. It turned totally black and then went boom, and it shattered all over the room. I took care of that rock, didn't I? But that's when I realized that crystals are there, and even though it pulled all the chemo out of her. So what's going on with your this crystal that whoever gifted it to you, it doesn't matter the name. When it broke, it was because it was absorbing so much negative energy from you that it actually broke. Now, doesn't mean that it's still not usable. Mine it disintegrated. There wasn't anything I could do with it. It would just shattered all over the room. But the fact that your crystal broke, it was or the crystal that was gifted to you or whoever led it to you. The two parts of the crystal are still good, but they did break because when the person had you sleep with it, it was releasing some negativity that you had. And the fact that it broke was just saying that they felt a little overwhelmed, so it had to divide itself. So there's nothing really wrong with it. It divided itself so that it could give you twice as much energy.
So the next question is, what's the best crystal for all of us to sleep with?
Well, I have to tell you that I have, which I found in Maine, a massive piece of tourmaline that I have by my bedside. It's probably, maybe I'll bring it next month if I feel like slugging it over here. But my favorite crystal to sleep in bed with me is your clear quartz crystal. And I'll tell you why. Because they use it in clocks, they use it in this stuff. It has a really good vibration. If you experienced one of them today, it's an all-around crystal. It has a lot of energy, and it can receive and it can give. It has both abilities to give and release. So I would use, as a matter of fact, I have many times used just clear quartz crystals. I thought I stuck it under my pillow, or and maybe if I'm having a bad day, I'll put 2 or 3 around, and then I usually put them under the pillow, but not where I sleep, just on the edges of the pillow, and I usually in the middle. So that's how I use it. But then, because it's uncomfortable if you jam it in your neck or something. So that's why I put it. So I kind of actually build the energy around. So, but that's what I would recommend. My second choice would be an amethyst crystal, because that's another really good healing it. Another one would be fluorite. That would be my third choice. And my fourth choice, the fourth choice, it depends on if you need to have, like, bring in more love in your life, or you're not feeling good about yourself, you're feeling, sad, or then I would use a quartz crystal. That would be a really good choice, to bring in, it's like to love yourself. And that's to sleep with it, because a lot of people don't love themselves. They have a problem with that. So that would be my fourth choice. And my fifth choice would be, it's my favorite rock. I would tourmaline, because that's a good energy balancing, but that would be my fifth choice. I would go, because it depends on what you're using the crystal for, what your intention is. And I could go more on, but on these, but those, you get an idea. And if you have a specific request, then just type it in, and I'll let you know.
So this is a question both of you, Ethan, can answer, Barb too. And I think it's really good because this comes up a lot in my sessions lately, especially. And this is from Elaine. She says, a few months ago, I met a healer who I'm doing courses with, and I've started my light worker path too. Recently, I started to remember past lives with him. By having day visions and dreams, and strong feelings are coming with it, good ones. In the past lives, I'm married and he has a partner. We haven't talked about it, but I feel that he knows. However, if not, I don't want to start that conversation. I'm trying to clear it out, but it's hanging around. What is your advice on how to deal with this?
Well, I actually went in a past life experience. For me, it was, imagine a tornado, and you're in the inside, but you can move your body up and down, because the inside of the tornado is still. And up and down, there's all these little doors, all around, and you can open the door and you can walk into a past life. This was my personal experience. And in that lifetime, I was married and the next door neighbor was in Nebraska. She was her husband had passed, and she had a ranch too, and so everybody would come over to my house, and I would feed all of them, her and her ranch hands, and me and my 3 sons, and my husband, and my ranch people. But I was the cook, for both groups. In this lifetime, she lived on the next street from where I lived. The same woman, and we got connected that way. And so I would help her out and do things for her until somebody would take her away and want to try to take advantage of her. And when she'd catch on, then she'd come back to me, oh, I'm so sorry. So it was, I ended up buying her house after she passed. But I found that interesting that, I had her in that life, and I recognized her in this life after I'd had the past life experiences. So my whole point is that I think that people come back to you in different modalities, and I was still helping her out in this time, and I was helping her in because she didn't like to cook, and I loved to cook, so I was cooking the meal. They would bring the food, I'd cook it all and serve everybody. So, yeah, and it was fun. It was it was hard work, but in the past life. So, I really do believe that you work out things in each lifetime with different people that you meet. And I've never done another one, so other than that particular experience, I'm sure that I probably have a lot of, I'm sure you're who knows how many other people. But it's interesting how people come into your life. And I mean, I have one of my best friends. I was in a hypnotist office, and I walked down to this other office, and they had a rock calendar on the wall. And I waltzed in and said, oh, do you like rocks? Oh, yeah, I love rocks. And now that person's one of my best friends. And it was just a passing thing. So you never know who you're going to meet that's going to change your life. So it's always good to be open to whatever experiences you have, because I always tell people, you might be a friend for a minute, an hour, a day, or a lifetime.
So this question is a bit complex because, first of all, anybody can be a spiritual teacher. So you can, and even more advanced spiritual teachers are still human. If you're here in physical body, you're still experiencing a human experience. And even some of the most well-known and world-famous spiritual teachers are still human. They still experience human reality to some extent or another. Now, some individuals have developed themselves in certain ways to where they may not have the same physical needs as other human beings do. I mean, some spiritual teachers or spiritually advanced human beings may not need to eat food or may not require the same things that other people desperately feel they require. But that doesn't mean that they're not human in all the other ways. So just because somebody has developed certain talents or abilities does not imply that their consciousness or their development is high. You can have somebody who has very low consciousness but has extraordinary healing abilities. And this is why a lot of people have become disenchanted with spiritual gurus and spiritual leaders in recent years, because in particular, a lot of the male spiritual teachers or healers that are out there in the world have become a bit tarnished in recent years because they have the same male inclinations as any other man would have. And many of them don't possess the self-control as many other men don't have. So you shouldn't first not give too much, overly worship your spiritual teachers, because they are also human and they're also experiencing human life, and they also have human learning experiences and lessons that they are here to acquire. And so now, if that human being who is a spiritual teacher is of a significantly advanced consciousness, then they may experience life a little bit differently. And they may still eat, and they may still breathe air, and they may still drink water, but their experience of reality may be completely different from everybody else. And with that level of consciousness, they may also have an energy field that is especially powerful, more so than the average person. And when you have an energy field that's of that level of intensity, and not all spiritual teachers have that, and I would say the majority of people out there who are quote-unquote spiritual teachers are really just regular people who are, teaching whatever they know intellectually, and nothing wrong with that. But when you have a certain energy field or intensity of energy that is, and I'm not talking about just an aura alone, but the level of consciousness that moves through that aura, because you could have a lot of politicians have large auras. They may not be auras you want to be around, but they may be large because it allows them to influence their audience. And so large aura doesn't necessarily imply spiritual teacher or consciousness or somebody you want to be influenced by. But when that aura is being supported by a higher level of consciousness, that's when you have a enlightened being walking the planet who can do very positive things. So, but any individual who has a large aura can influence their environment and the people in their environment, sometimes against their will and sometimes for their benefit. In more ancient times, and I'm referring to, when I say ancient, I mean 20,000 years ago and beyond ancient times, when we had enlightened beings walking the earth, in a time when most human beings were not anywhere near that level of advancement. Those enlightened beings, many of whom Michaela channels, who once walked the earth and now are in other dimensions, those enlightened beings, because of their consciousness, their intention as being leaders in whatever they were doing was for the benefit of the collective. And we don't see that today in society very much, sometimes. But the majority of people we call leaders in the world, including spiritual leaders, are oftentimes very much self-motivated. And so we have to keep all of this in context. I'm not saying dump your guru if you have one, but understand that most gurus these days, or spiritual teachers, are experiencing their human experience in some degree or another, and in many cases they may not have risen to a level of consciousness to where they can genuinely serve the people they're here to serve in a leadership sort of way. So what I mean by that is, when a human being or a soul reaches a certain level of advancement and they come to earth to be a spiritual teacher, let's say, or a leader, the difference between that and the leaders we see prevalent on the planet today is that a leader of a higher level of consciousness, when they speak or they act in a way that affects the people around them, in that action or words that they're speaking, they're including the collective. So meaning they can respond to their audience as if they're speaking on behalf of the audience. So if there's a group of people in the room and the teacher is responding, that whole collective is speaking through that teacher. So when Michaela channels, let's say, the Pleiadians, there is a voice that's speaking. That voice is not one Pleiadian, although it may identify itself as one. If you were to ask who is speaking, that voice may come out and say, "Oh, I'm so-and-so from the Pleiadian collective." But when that voice, for example, earlier today, I don't remember, it was Archangel Michael or one of the other archangels, and the way they introduced themselves was as we. but at the same time, they identified themselves as a singular being at the same time. So this is what you have when society is being led by highly conscious beings, is even though the collective has a voice that is identifying itself in singular form so that we can understand, because we see everything in singular form, in reality, that one voice, although it may be a single being among the collective, that one voice speaks for the whole collective. And in those responses, the whole collective is speaking through that one voice. So when you have spiritual leaders or teachers on the planet who are of a sufficient level of consciousness, when they speak and they act, the whole collective speaks through them and acts through them. And in such a society, you don't have wars and suffering and these kind of things, because the leaders are not speaking for themselves or for their own personal gain or for the gain of their friends or whoever is paying them, but they are speaking as a voice of the whole collective, and their actions will always reflect the whole collective. But we don't see that today in very meaningful ways in society, even among the spiritual teachers that we see. So I want to preface the answer to your question with all of that, just to set a context so you understand when you go to a spiritual teacher or guru that most of them are having human experiences, and very few on the planet today, and of the ones that do exist, you probably don't even know who they are of the consciousness that I'm speaking. But if you go to a spiritual teacher who has a command of energy, who has a significant energy field, they will trigger the energy field of others in their environment. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. And when you're around that kind of intensity of energy, it will trigger awarenesses in you of past lives you have had. Now, what you are experiencing may or may not have been a past life with that particular spiritual teacher. Just because their energy is intense and it's triggering things in you, it doesn't necessarily mean that lifetime was with that particular individual. It could be, but it could just as well be that you are being made aware of past life experiences you had, that this teacher, because of their energy field, is awakening to your awareness for you to re-experience. So I see that a lot of times when these kinds of experiences occur, when you're around a particular guru or spiritual teacher, you realize that you've had a past life with them. You might have, but it could also be a remembrance of a different lifetime or timeline with someone else that you're simply relating to that particular teacher because their energy field is that intense. So keep that in mind when you're evaluating these things. So that having been said, let's just say you did have a past life with that particular teacher, or maybe even another timeline experience. You could also be seeing another potential timeline. When souls reach a certain level of advancement, they can often be experiencing different timelines at the same time on planet Earth while in a human body in front of you. So they could be in front of you and also experiencing other timelines of experience, and maybe one of them you are also with them. So there's so many complexities to what you're asking. But in terms of should you approach them with it, if you feel like it, there's no harm in that, because at the end of the day, life plays out how it needs to. So if you approach them and it blows everything up and you ruin your relationship with your guru, or you break up their marriage if they're in one, or whatever, that's all okay. Because at the end of the day, all of the experiences you're meant to have in this life, you set in motion before you came here. And if you are meant to be with this guru in some sort of romantic relationship, or if you're just going to create a lot of chaos and break up his current one and he ends up with somebody else and you end up with somebody else, that's okay too. So there is no wrong answer. There is no wrong path. And as long as you're not harming anybody in the process of what you're doing, and even if you do harm somebody, there's no wrong answer, there's no wrong path. We experience everything we're meant to. So I would say, pursue it if you want to. And the main thing is to be in a state of non-resistance in everything that you're doing. So if you do pursue it, let it unfold however it unfolds. And if it works out in the way that you want, that's great. If it doesn't work out in the way that you want, that's also great. Either way, you'll end up in the right place, and so will he.
So, Barb, is there a way that we can tell which crystals absorb, transmute, or give energy?
Well, once again, I said that your basic quartz crystal is a good one for doing all of that. And, everybody's different. I mean, like sometimes a strong person, they can handle malachite right away. It took me a while before I could handle malachite. So malachite's a um, very strong stone. Basically, what I always tell people is when you go to a rock shop or a rock show, crystals, see what you feel you're drawn to. I mean, some people will be drawn to rose quartz, some people will be drawn to tourmaline, some people will be drawn to kyanite. I have a bumblebee quartz that I actually have a necklace made out of it because I kept going. I walked by it and I was looking at everything else and I kept coming back to it. So, and I'd walk away again and I kept coming back. Okay, I give up. I'm supposed to have this piece, So it's basically because everybody's different. Everybody has their own emotions and feelings. If you trust your intuition to see what you're drawn to. Some people will be drawn to something green. Some people will be drawn to something purple. Everyone is different. But whatever you feel drawn to, and you just look at that, and you just say, "Oh man, this is really pretty." And it's because when you think it's pretty, it's calling you to pick it up. So that's how I always tell people just. I go around crystals, and a lot of times I just put my hand over, them to see if anyone wants me. And I just, sometimes I walk 4 or 5, 6 tables, and all of a sudden, hey, okay, there it is. So basically the crystals will call you. They'll let you know what you need. You just trust your intuition and feel what you're drawn to, and that's basically what you need because everyone's different. I mean, some people like water, some people like milk, some people like coffee, some people like tea. It's the same thing in rocks and crystals. It's whatever you're drawn to.
So, Ethann, how do we get over sensitivity to all the negative going-ons on the earth today? It can be pretty crippling.
Yeah, that's hard to answer that question in a way that you can apply it because I pay attention to all the goings on. I don't watch mainstream news, but through other sources, and I probably know more about what's going on than most people who watch mainstream news. But it doesn't really upset me, and I'm just going about my life, and if anything, I'm happier now than I was 2 years ago. So I think it's possible, but it's not really a matter of paying attention or not paying attention to those things. It's really more a state of being that you need to find yourself in. So I can suggest a few paths there, but ultimately it's not a mechanical thing. It's not something that I can say, okay, well, go do these 10 things and you're going to be in a state of bliss no matter what's going on in the world. But certainly there are certain physical things you can do that will help. But ultimately, it's a state of consciousness, a state of being that you need to achieve, and that's not really something that can be done mechanically. Although there are certainly things you can do. I mean, things like meditation will certainly help on that path, but just meditating every day by itself does not always work in modern society. Now, if you were living in the middle of nowhere in a cave, then meditating might help in that sense. But in modern society, there are so many things these days that are interfering with our ability to stay focused in that way. And just in the earlier channeling, experience, we were talking about chemtrails and all these other issues with nutrition and diet, and that's even getting worse these days. So there's so much interference these days that it's hard to find that state of stillness in society. But ultimately, that's a goal. And probably, all of you chose to be here at this time so you could find that place, to be in the world as it is today and be part of making it a better one while finding your own state of stillness while in it, because you can't necessarily be a benefit if you're also in a state of chaos all the time too. But there's nothing wrong with that. So if you are there, my first advice would be to be there. Meaning, one of the biggest problems I see to achieving things in our human experience, whatever that happens to be, whether it be wealth or health or spirituality or just a state of happiness and stillness in a world of chaos, is our resistance to accepting where we are. So if, for example, the world is a mess and you're watching it every day and it's getting worse and it's causing a lot of stress in you, and you're judging yourself for being stressed by the situation in the world and how do I get out of it, that's actually going to put you further into it. You have to first be okay with where you are and accept that this is where you are, and that's okay. So if you're in a state of stress in the world and you're trying to fix it, just stop trying to fix it first. Just be okay with that and just accept this is just my experience right now and I'm just stressed out. And the best way to deal with it is to get more stressed out. I know that sounds a little counterintuitive, but the majority of people suffer so much because they resist the state that they're in. So let's say you're in a state of intense fear and anxiety over world events or life events. Most people's reaction is to try to get out of it. Meditate out of it, go work out, run a marathon, whatever, to try to get this out of my system. And all it does is it makes it further into your system. But if you could instead go into that feeling, into that emotion, and intensify it and really be present in the experience of that emotion, that would get you to the other side. So if you're in a state of intense fear, instead of resisting that, and I would say most people are resisting that. So let's take the last 2 years as an example. A good majority of the planet went into an intense state of fear. And when in that state of fear, did all kinds of things that many of them now regret doing. And some don't yet, but they probably will eventually. And let's say on the other hand, instead of resisting it, everybody just fully experienced that state of fear of whatever it is they thought was happening in the world. If they had fully experienced it, they would have been a little crazy for a short period of time. But on the other side of it, that fear would have gone away, because a state of non-resistance to it will allow it to flow. It's just like when you're going down a river in a boat, and your goal is to get to way down there on the other end, or you're trying to get to the lake on the other end of the river. You don't get to the lake in a straight shot. The water in the river doesn't go straight from one place to the other. It crashes into the banks and crashes and over again crashes until it gets to the end, and it finally gets to the lake. So human journey is like that. It is a state of constantly crashing and course correcting and crashing and course correcting until you get to the destination. And no sooner than you get to the destination, you don't want to get to that destination anymore. You're already moving on to the next destination, whatever that is. So we're constantly trying to do that. But imagine if that river, every time it crashed into the river bank, just got stuck there and just stayed there because, I'm trying to get over here, but it just really sucks that I'm stuck over here, and I'm just going to sit here and crash against this beach a little bit longer. It would never get anywhere. So what I'm trying to say is the problem with the stress that you're experiencing is not the world events. It is that you're allowing yourself to keep crashing into that, whether it be fear or stress or anxiety of some sort. And instead of resisting that, just fully go into it, whatever that is, and fully intensify the experience of that emotion. If you need to lock yourself in a padded room while you do that, that's okay. But when you do that, the emotion will pass through, and you'll find yourself the other side. And that doesn't mean on the other side there won't be something new to be afraid of. But if you could live your life that way, to where you fully immerse yourself in the emotion of what you're experiencing, and fully experience it instead of resisting it every time, then they would just flow. They would just come in and they flow right out, and then you'd go on to the next experience. And eventually, that path alone will lead you to a state of being where you no longer stress out about things. And emotions that come and go would just flow. Because even the most enlightened beings on the planet are in human bodies. They experience emotions. And that's a blessing. It's an opportunity we get to have on this planet, is to have emotions. But nobody gave us a training manual on how to actually live in a human body. So most people don't understand how to do that. And so our reaction to emotion is, it's something wrong, it's something bad, we have to fight against it, it shouldn't be happening, we shouldn't be experiencing anxiety, let's go take some drugs to relieve anxiety, and drug companies are more than happy to sell you those drugs. So that is just perpetuating the problem. But if we saw emotions as the gift that they are, that we get to have them in this human incarnation, and what a joy it is. And you won't realize this till someday you're not here and you're on the other side, and you think back and you think, oh, all those opportunities I had to feel emotions and really see what it was like, I just fought against it, wasted the opportunity. Don't waste that opportunity, because these are all opportunities for you to fully immerse yourself in that emotional experience. Let it flow and wash over you, and then you'll move on. And if everybody could do that, we would have world peace. And eventually we would all be able to maintain that state of being where we could be in a state of stillness and observe human experience, meaning you will walk through your life and whatever happens to you, and you may experience emotions for the moment, and you'll feel them intensely and fully, all the while you're watching yourself experiencing those things. So this is one of the stages of human evolution that we're all trying to get to, where you can be an observer of your experience while having the experience of being human. Now, as an ascended master, they're watching us having our human experience, and many of them have also been in human form at some point. But imagine if you could observe your human experience while being in a human body, having a human experience. And that is, I think, ultimately where we want to go. So I would say, in terms of world events, that's how I would deal with all emotional experiences, whether positive or negative. I mean, if we're having a positive experience, everybody wants those. Everybody wants to immerse themselves in that, state of bliss and joy and romantic love and those kind of things. We don't want those things to end. We want those things to last forever. But then when the slightest little negative emotion comes, we want them to go away. But the negative is as good as a positive. It's all human experience. It's all the intensity of variety that we came here to have in this incarnation. And I think resistance to these things is the biggest problem on the planet today. If we could embrace those things and allow ourselves to fully immerse in them, then we could be in a world of chaos and turbulence, but ourselves be in a state of stillness and joy all the time. Let the world out there do its thing. And what it also allows us to do is to make better choices in life. We can observe the world out there and what it's experiencing, and see the truth in what's really taking place. And it allows us to make choices, not because the news or our neighbor told us we should do those things, but because in our state of stillness, we can see the truth of the reality of the world that we're living in, and there's nothing really to fear at any time. So hopefully that helps. I know it's not an easy answer to that question because reaching a state of being is not a mechanical process. I can't tell you do these 10 steps and you're going to be in this state of being. It's a consciousness process that happens over time, and it sneaks up on you until one day you wake up and you realize you're there and you don't know how you got there.
There is a manual, though. You said there was
Oh.
no manual, and I always felt A Course in Miracles was that manual.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. I've never read it, but yeah, I mean, there are certainly lots of books and teachings out there that are useful. And Mikhail's book is also another book, and then some of those books are channeled books that are coming from higher guidance.
This was channeled.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it, but I've never read it. I actually do have it in my library, but I never actually read it. The channeled works, if they're authentically channeled, can contain that information. When I said we don't have a manual, I'm speaking in general for the collective of humanity, because not many people have read that book. Small subsegment of society, right? And but at some point, hopefully, those ideas are taught in schools and schools of the future, and we grow up with that manual. And we learn that at a young age, and we're trained at a young age to live like that. At the moment, it's not a reality, but I think it will be. And to the earlier channeling question about fifth dimension, I mean, I think when we get to the fifth dimension, we'll be living in a collective where that is understood. At the moment, we're not there. And that's why we live in a world where there's wars and suffering and all kinds of other insanity. But we will get there, and many of us who are walking the planet today will write those manuals, write those instruction manuals for human evolution. They did once exist, tens of thousands of years ago, but that wisdom has largely been lost, although been brought back by many gifted channels in the recent 100 years or so. All right, so we'll do the energy transfer now for those of you who are still with us, and then we'll wrap it up. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, the energy transfer process is a consciousness-raising process, which, to the question about reaching the state of stillness where you are not upset by world events, this is one of those processes that will help you on that. Not necessarily in your first instance, although some people do have profound experiences and bliss states and such. And if that happens to you, that's great. If it doesn't happen, it's also great. We're not trying to achieve a state of bliss, although we may all love that. And often bliss states don't last forever, because if we were in a state of bliss all the time, then why bother being on planet Earth and experiencing human life? So some of you may experience energy vibrations or sensations, kundalini, or any number of sensations, and that's all good if you do that. But ultimately what we're looking for is a raise in consciousness and less density in your energy field, which will take you further on the path to being able to walk this earth while not being subject to the suffering of this earth that so many people are. And that's why we do these events. And Barb is here to observe the room and to let us know what's changed. And so you want to...
Well, we have a lot of enlightened people here, so this room is pretty excited and happy.
So for those of you who are new, this is a two-part process. Part of it is you sending your density to me, and if you're new to me online, then don't worry, no harm comes to me in the process. Just follow along. And if you don't know what to do, that's okay. Just sit there and hold the intention to participate. And there's a 13th dimensional collective of beings who facilitate this process through this physical structure. So they will pull a density from you, but if you want, you can participate by visualizing it as a dark cloud of energy from your energy field and send it to mine, and it'll just disintegrate as it hits my energy field. So you don't have to carry it with you forward. Now, it's not generally advisable that all of your density is removed in one sitting, although sometimes it may happen. because whenever you make such a big change in your energy field, there can be a significant adjustment in your physical life. And I do get emails from people from time to time where the next day their whole life falls apart. And if it does, that's okay, because ultimately it did that because your energy field has changed so much so that now your outer life has to reflect that. And so usually that results in your current life collapsing in order to rebuild into something new that's better. So we don't want to make a huge adjustment all at once, but repeat this process. You can use the videos from these events if you find it beneficial to continue between our live events. And feel free to do that. You don't need my permission to do that. It's this collective that does it on your behalf when you hold the intention. So you can use the videos regardless of whatever I'm doing at that time. It doesn't make any difference. So you'll be sending a density to me. At the same time, this collective will be sending an energy through my heart center to all of yours, whether you're online or in person, to raise your consciousness, expand your energy field, and so on. And I'll play a little music in the background while we do that, and that's from our friend Mark Romero. If you like it, you can go to markromeromusic.com. And we'll go for about 10 or 15 minutes, and we'll come back when we're done. So just close your eyes and breathe comfortably, and focus your energy, or focus your intention on sending any density to me, and keep doing that throughout. And at the same time, you can, if you want, observe a white light from my heart center to all of yours to raise your consciousness and vibration. And I'm going to be silent now and play a little music, and I'll come back when we're done.
every one of the chairs were full of spirits. The back wall was filled with spirits. It was absolutely incredible. And everyone that was in this room was surrounded by spirits. It was just absolutely beautiful. And a lot of negative karma came out from the camera area until all of a sudden it changed to green, which was really like a healing. It was like a coming from and coming to, So the very last, it was like they were sending healing back to you, which was going back to them. It was absolutely incredible. That whole back wall was just filled with spirits, and every single chair in this room was filled with spirits, souls. Absolutely beautiful. And the room looks so much lighter to me right now. I mean, I didn't realize it was dark, But it's like everything's just kind of lifted up, and it was like a,
Okay. Anything else that we need to talk about? Okay, great. Well, thank you all for coming and for joining us this weekend. We'll be back again next month, I believe, here. And so we'll see you in April. And at this point, we plan on doing events here for the next foreseeable future anyway. Although we are adding some new other live streams in addition that we haven't done yet, as soon as our new studio's done, we'll be doing those. So look out for those on Facebook or YouTube in the future. So thank you again. We'll see you soon.